Welcome to LOA Today. Walt Thiessen and life coach Wendy Dillard here. Today is Tuesday, September the 11th, 2018, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, your second daily dose of happy for the day. And we hope that your weekdays continue to be happy. We're doing our best with each of the podcasts that we do twice daily to help lift your spirits up and get you into that better feeling place so that you can be attracting all the stuff that you want into your life. But of course, you got to be doing your part too. So this is don't think of this as being the sole source of all your happiness, but we hope it actually contributes in some way because that's really one of the reasons we're doing it. So Wendy, how you doing? I mean, it's been a while since I talked to you. How's it going?
No. I'm doing great. I'm loving my life. I'm loving how things are progressing.
Well, that's a good sound. Yeah, I like that.
Yes,
that's really
totally.
Good.
I had a call with my friend Rhonda today, an impromptu call, and it moved the needle, yet again in my life. And I love it when that happens.
Oh, yeah. That's really good stuff. Because that's what friends are for sure, to help lift each other up. And more importantly, anytime that we get back into that happy place where you pretty much live in regularly. I mean, it's kind of rare for you to go on a vacation to the dark side, but
I live in happy place.
You do. You really do. Now, there is actually something going on today and up for the next few days that is consuming the attention of a lot of people on the East Coast. And it has also consumed my attention too, because a major hurricane boring in on the coast of North Carolina called Hurricane Florence, currently Category 4, expected to be Category 3 when it hits, and it's possible that it could even stall over the coast and turn to Category 5, which would be pretty devastating stuff. So, of course, I have family down there. My mom and my sister have evacuated. They're about 200 miles inland, so they're safe and sound. But I also have a niece and her fiance who are getting married at the end of this month on the 29th.
Oh, my.
And they have hunkered down about 20 miles from the shore. They have some supplies and a generator, but there's a lot of concern about what could happen as a result of this hurricane. However, you may be able to tell from the sound of my voice that I'm not terribly concerned. And the reason I'm not terribly concerned is I am using the skills that I have learned over the years to influence storms. And in fact, I'm also marshaling the help of other people to influence the storm. In fact, I just finished posted, Wendy, in that Law of Attraction group on Facebook that I spent some time in, a request for help from other people. And I actually painted for them the scenario that I want them to imagine and comment on and build up the energy of. I am actually proposing the idea of, let's imagine, this is all just pretend, right? So we don't have to worry about what is. This is just pretending. What if the entire coast of the United States, instead of being hit by Hurricane Florence, what if it were hit by Tropical Vacation Florence? So
that's a nice reframe. Mm-hmm.
So basically, in my mind, I am turning the entire East Coast of the United States into a great big tropical vacation. And I'm imagining all these people who are hunkering down, amazed, climbing out of their shelters and saying, "Whoa, the storm is gone," and having a celebration and Congo lines and all kinds of stuff. I'm imagining that as much as I can, and I'm encouraging as many other people to help out, because obviously the more energy we all share in the same direction, the better it all works out. Mm-hmm. So that's my task for the day, trying to get myself into that place. Isn't that a fun one?
And I'd love to add to that.
Okay.
Instead of Tropical Vacation Florence hitting the coast, what if it just gently landed on the beaches?
I like that. That's good. Yeah, we don't want to hit anything. That's right.
No, it just landed nicely, on the beaches, and it gave people something to look at and stirred up the energy. And I'm all about stirring up the energy.
Oh, absolutely. And, yes.
That's what if Florence just wants to stir up some energy and get people present and more alert to their life and pay attention?
Plus, I have to admit, there's also a part of me that says the newsies would go nuts over it because they wouldn't know what to make of it.
Well, let the news media do whatever they need to do.
Well, I think it'd be fun. I think it'd be funny to watch.
Yeah, they can transition their thinking and their thoughts based on what is.
Boy, that would be something. Yeah, I'd like that.
If what is becomes not what they expected, they'll really have something to talk about.
Absolutely. They'll be writing about it for months.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. So this could be a really, really fun thing. It's just a question of how truly can we stay true to our little pretending that we're doing? Because, of course, pretending actually is the same thing as real.
Yeah, well, every time a hurricane occurs and it's going to possibly affect the people who live near the coast, what if it's because the people at the coast are asking to wake up? What if they're asking to become more present in their lives?
That's a good point.
What if they're asking to be in connection with one another and communicating with one another? And what if this is one of the ways that can occur?
That's true. So there are a lot of different ways that this can actually play out for the positive, ways that we don't even necessarily know how to anticipate at this point.
Absolutely. And whatever we consider negative is just our focus on something we don't want, because I know everything's always working out, not just for me. Everything's always working out for the planet. Everything's always working out for nature. Everything's always working out for humanity. Everything's always working out for our emergency rescue forces. Everything's always working out.
It reminds me of a movie that was released a few years ago, not too long ago, about an incident with an airplane that you may recall. There was an incident with a passenger airliner in New York City that upon takeoff ran into a whole flock of birds that knocked out both of its engines, and it had to do an emergency landing in the Hudson River. I don't know if you remember that. But
I do remember that.
You do remember that. And the amazing thing of it is that everyone survived. The entire crew, the entire passenger list survived. And they survived despite the fact that it was in January, and all of New York just kind of converged at once on this airliner that was floating in the middle of the Hudson River and rescued everybody. It was the most amazing coming together of a city that I think we'd ever seen in this country, apart from other disasters that we can all think about. But in terms of having a positive resolution, I mean, it was just such an amazingly positive resolution. So, I mean, if that's the kind of thing you like to relive, and I like watching that film over and over again. It's like a way of programming my mind to say, these things all work out great. It's just a question of whether we're looking at it that way.
Absolutely. And I guess it was Sunday morning, I was woken up by the phone ringing, and it was an 800 number, and I answered it, and it was my credit card fraud protection department calling me. And, it's the automated line, and it told me two different charges, both for the same amount, one that tried to go through on Saturday, and my credit card company declined it. Then they tried it again on Sunday. My credit card company declined it. I'm assuming it was the same thing because it was the exact same amount. So when I tell the automated system, no, these are not charges that I know about, then you get to talk to a live person.
Okay.
Well, what I found out was that I found out the name of, who tried to do it. And I said, not a name that sounds familiar. And then they somehow said it's connected with something that you charged on August 25th. It may be a subscription charge. And at the time, I couldn't think of what it was. But while they were talking, I started Googling things, and I went, oh, this was a promotional something that I found online. And it was like for skincare cream or something like that. And, you just pay $5 for the shipping for the promotional something. And then they do a thing like, oh, and if you like that, you might also want this for another $5.
Of course.
So anyway, bottom line, I just said, yeah. And so I didn't realize that there was a subscription cost that was now being assessed, I think from the same company. And I thought about it and went, everything always works out for me because the charges got declined.
Mm-hmm.
Then I called the company, and they said, oh, yes, it was a 14-day free trial. And I said, I'll be honest, these are things I look for. I made the purchase from my cell phone. I said, there was nothing within visible sight that said that. I said, I believe you that it's a 14-day free trial, but I said there was no clear printing of that. And I said, so bottom line, please cancel my subscription. And then they did the well, but, and I'm like, no, just cancel it. And they said, but if we gave it to you at 50% off, I said, no, thank you. And they said, well, you still will be charged for this. I said, well, you tried. but it's already been declined. My credit card company has already blocked anything from your company, so it's not going to go through. I'm just going to go through. This is just my official way of saying, just please go ahead and cancel the subscription.
In other words, it was a courtesy call.
Kind of.
You were making a courtesy call. That was very nice of you.
Because I'm kind, remember?
Yeah, sure.
And so anyway, she said, not a problem. It's been canceled. She explained, here's blah, 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 the confirmation number. And the whole thing took about an hour out of my Sunday morning. And I thought about it. I went, I never got upset. Even though it woke me up, I still wasn't upset. I was so appreciative that my credit card company just somehow, we'll say it, intuited due to the type of company that was making the charge. And I went online and I went, oh yeah, this is a scam company. It doesn't mean the product is inappropriate or not a good thing, but how they're marketing it is pretty scammy. Mm-hmm. But it's like my credit card company already had it on the watch list. And that's why it got declined instead of it going through and then calling me afterwards. And I thought, this is another, episode of everything's always working out for me.
That's right. Yeah.
I didn't have to have my credit card canceled. They didn't have to say, tear it up and we'll send you a new one. And I went, this is just so easy peasy. And I just had this overwhelming awareness the whole time I was talking to the various people. The universe has my back. The universe has my back. Now, one of some things that I've come to learn is, because some people will say, well, that didn't happen to me. I got screwed and blah, blah, blah. Mm. Well, my thinking aligns with, if there's something I need to know, I'll be alerted in advance. And or in this case, it was kind of sort of after the fact, the fraud prevention department took care of it. But my thinking lines up with, I'm always protected. And I don't spend a whole lot of time focusing on that, because if I spent a lot of time, then I would move into, oh my God, I need protection. Oh, there's so many bad things happening in the world. I don't go there. As Abraham says, have a light focus on that which you desire. So my light focus, meaning I don't hunker down and go, okay, universe, protect me.
Send the firebolts.
That's just adding resistance. I just have a light sense of, if there's something that I need to be protected from, take care of it for me, please. And then I set that and forget that. I did that a long time ago. I've had the thought every now and then, but it's like every time when people say, because if I get somebody coming to my door trying to sell an alarm system, I listen to their spiel. I show them the care and kindness to at least let them get through their process. And then I just tell them, thank you, but no, thank you. I'm not interested. And they'll say, well, who are you currently being armed by? And I'll say, I don't use a security protection system on my system, because my internal guidance system, my intuitive wisdom tells me everything I need to know. Of course, then they had little eyeballs going, huh?
Right.
And I'll say, I don't need protection because I'm cared for. The universe always has my back. And again, but they start to give me statistics. And I said, I understand that. And I totally believe that the people that get robbed are people that have fear of being robbed. I'm just not one of those. So I don't call the robbers to me. And I said, thank you very much. And I feel like I've given them the gift of some new information.
Which they may not have absorbed, but at least they got it.
At least some weirdo, potential customer told them something odd.
Right.
Or at least they have something fun to go back to their office and go, you're not going to believe what this lady told me. And you know what? That's okay. My message is still going out there.
It got out, yeah.
But I have a really strong sense that of what I said. Like once upon a time, I lived in an apartment and I did have an alarm system. And you know what? I set that thing off so often because I forgot to turn it off when I walked in the door.
Oh, yes.
And then it got to the point, because so many people were setting it off inappropriately, now there was going to be a charge.
Oh, jeez.
If the police department had to come out and it was a false alarm, you had to pay them like $125.
Right.
And at that point, I went, just disconnect.
Mm-hmm.
I put an alarm system in because some salesperson filled me with information and it made it sound like, yeah, I ought to do this. This is the appropriate thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
But what I came to realize, it wasn't appropriate for me. And I actually felt better when the alarm system was disarmed than when it was armed. Because when it was armed, I was constantly focusing on it. Because every time I walked in or out of my house, I had to put in my, security code.
Yeah, you really couldn't avoid it when you have to put the code in every day.
Yeah. So every time I put the code in, I was focusing on a security system that was there to protect me from what? All sorts of potential crime.
Mm.
So when I disarmed it, I stopped focusing on potential crime.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't recommend doing that unless you're fully aligned with what I am, which is I don't require protection from a security system because I have the ultimate protection called my inner being and the universe.
Yeah.
They've got my back.
Yeah, well, that's what the alignment's all about. Also, the point that you made, and I've been kind of thinking about it a little bit. The point that you made about how there may be some people on the coast of the United States who are attracting this storm, and who, for whatever reason, do want it to come through. Which sounds kind of bizarre and maybe even a little bit sadistic, but we can posit there's some sort of energy like that going on. And that can be a little bit disturbing when you think about it, because then you start wondering about, well, doesn't that mean that there are going to be some innocent victims and all that kind of thing? And whenever I think about that particular problem, the idea of, well, there's a storm coming and there's a whole bunch of people being affected by it. If some people attracted it, doesn't that harm other people? Whenever I think about that, I also think about a particular storm that I experienced, that my wife and I experienced while we were in Virginia. A storm came through that's known as a microburst. It's kind of like it's almost tornado-ish in terms of the wind speed, but it's not a tornado. And it usually covers a fairly decent swath of ground, usually like a few miles wide, that kind of thing. Well, it came right through our area. And I've even detailed in the book that we published this past May the story of how that happened. And the long and the short of it is Louise and I did our thing of visualizing a much more tropical paradise kind of a scene rather than a windstorm. And the net result is the storm bypassed our area. It went around us on both sides.
Wow.
Now, that alone is a fun and interesting story, and I love telling that story. But there's another piece of the story that I didn't include in the book, but which is a part of the story. And that is, I recall talking to other people who lived in the general area who were affected by the storm. And I don't remember the exact conversations, but I don't need to, because I got the gist of it. I can repeat the gist of it to you right now. I just knew that storm was coming through. And there was no way that this is the kind of story that people would tell, right? And you could just tell from having the conversation, of course the storm was going to go their way. It was the same storm. We lived just a few miles apart. But because Louise and I had the belief in beautiful sunny days, and they had the belief that storms were going to come through and tear their trees down, we had no damage at all, and they had trees being torn down. All within the same area.
Also in your area, the news media would probably start talking about it's hurricane season.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
And when it's like when people have a focus, and, meteorologists are looking for this
stuff,
because that's part of their job.
Yeah. It was actually tornado season, but same thing.
It's hurricane season.
Yeah.
They're starting to literally usher in hurricanes. They're talking about it. They're putting focus and attention on it. Then they're broadcasting it on the news. Then people start remembering the last hurricane and their fear. And that just incites all sorts of energy that's now being broadcast to the universe that says, oh, okay, well, bring a hurricane condition this direction.
In fact, one of the things that happens with these weather forecasts, particularly during tornado season, is you'll hear the broadcasters on the Weather Channel or on AccuWeather or whatever, and they're talking about how there are tornadoes being tracked or their conditions are ripe for tornadoes, and they'll identify the areas that are ripe for tornado activity, and there won't be any tornadic activity right away. And they'll be saying, no, the danger isn't over yet. You have to continue to stay alert, right? And no tornadoes show up still. And oh no, the danger is not past, and we'll be back after this message. And it's just like this ongoing thing. Now, sure, sometimes tornadic activity does happen, but it's incredible how often it doesn't happen. And when it doesn't happen, the media get even crazier. Like, it's almost
Well,
like it would ruin ratings if, you didn't have the tornadoes. And they know it. They want to make, they've got your attention. They don't want to lose it. So they just keep building it up and building it up and building it up.
So what if you have a meteorologist who is a total believer in the law of attraction, and he wants to, or we'll call him a he, but it could be a she. But let's say he wants to do what's right by his station in terms of, audience pull, but also not add to the fear thing. What do you think his message would be?
I mean, before he gets fired? Because he helped.
I'm saying he's still doing right by his company. Because here's what I know about law of attraction. If you're a meteorologist who really believes in law of attraction, there is a way to keep your job and assuage fear at the same time.
Well, that's true. It would take an entirely different form of reporting. It would have to involve reporting that shows that just because conditions may be ripe for a storm doesn't mean that a storm has to occur. And indeed, there are these signs that suggest that a storm may not occur. That would be the kind of conversation it would have to be. The question is, could he get past his management? But if he could, that would be a good approach.
And what if he added, we will keep you posted, and if there is any reason for alarm, we're going to let you know. But in the meantime, enjoy the fact that right now the weather is calm and there's nothing serious going on in your area.
That would be really interesting to see that broadcast and to see the aftermath of it. That would be fantastic.
And what if listeners started to really appreciate that, because I started to recognize the distinction on that station.
Yeah.
Where it wasn't pushing into the fear, and they started increasing market share.
That would be really something. I would love that.
I think that's possible. And then
of course
if
it's possible.
That catches on and it causes other media stations to kind of talk the same way? Like, let's not pump up the fear. Let's say that we're the happy feeling news.
I love it.
I'm all about, putting in my agenda, which is, well, first of all, I know and I believe that the law of the land is well-being.
True.
Well-being is the law of the land. So why on earth are we pushing so hard against it?
I've often wondered that.
If nature requires some kind of rebalancing where there's lots of winds or under the ocean earthquakes or whatever, why do they have to be near land? Why can't they be somewhere else where it doesn't affect humanity?
Why do they have to be severe for that matter? Why can't they be relatively calm?
Well, and sometimes things need a big shaking up, but why does it have to be near the land? But we call it to ourselves by how we talk and think.
That is the truth. Not. That is the truth. And it's a real skill to refocus and to redirect the attention. I mean, it's not every day we come up with the idea to say, let's turn a hurricane into a tropical vacation. It's not part of the normal part of everyday conversation,
Well, I don't live in a hurricane area, but I do live in where tornadoes are the natural disaster that happens where I live.
Right.
And I'm very aware, because I've seen this on the news many times, where a tornado will come through the area, and they'll show how fascinating it is that a tornado will hit one house and then skip a block and then hit two and then skip a block. I mean, tornadoes, it's not like if you're in the pathway of a tornado, you're going to get mowed down.
Well, exactly. That's the part that they always kind of dismiss as being like luck or something, but it's not luck.
But it's not. It's law of attraction.
It's
like the person whose house gets hit, whether they're aware of it or not, and I'm not putting any blame on anybody, because a lot of this kind of stuff is outside of their awareness.
Absolutely.
But they're vibrating to some kind of a trouble, catastrophe, bad things always happen to me. I live Murphy's Law. If something can go wrong, it will. And so that's the house that gets hit. And then next door to them, it doesn't get hit. They don't even have a tree branch break.
Right.
And they're a Pollyanna Wendy, who knows everything's always working out for them. They're not even home when the tornado, came through. So they were never even in danger. But where they were in their office, they just, kind of reminded, just because it made them feel better, to go, well, I know that my house is protected.
Mm-hmm.
And it skips over them.
Exactly.
And so I know that when it comes to tornadoes, the areas that get hit are the ones that have pockets of energy based on thoughts that are actually attracting the damage.
That's true. Yeah. And in
you know.
fact, now that I think about it, Louise and I had another experience with it this past spring. Another microburst, this one coming through us here in Connecticut. Now, Connecticut is not known normally as a tornado alley. Tornadoes are really, really rare here. And even hurricanes will sometimes get up here. And they have occasionally done so, but for the most part, we usually don't get either one. We'll get like the aftermath of a hurricane, perhaps, but that's about it. But there was this one time this past spring where a microburst storm, pretty good size one, came racing through from upstate New York through Connecticut. And we heard about it on the news, and Louise turned to me and says, I wonder if we got an issue. And I said, no, it's going to bypass us. I didn't even think about it. It was just like an instant reaction of total confidence it was going to bypass us. And actually, she didn't turn to me. She was out now that I think about it. She was calling me by cell phone. And when we were talking on the phone, I said, well, hang on, I'll just go verify it, but I'm sure it's going to bypass us. And I went and looked, and I watched what they were tracking and so forth. And yeah, sure enough, it was going to go south of us, and it ended up going south of us. And I never had a doubt about it. Interestingly enough, of course, the media was doing what we were talking about before. They were just, awfulizing the whole thing. And sure enough, there were a number of people in the path who experienced some pretty severe damage. What is overlooked by the media is how many people in the path did not experience severe damage. They overlooked that entirely. There were a number of places where homes were obliterated, where there was damage in like some state parks, and there was a number of things like that. But we're talking, Connecticut's not all that big anyway, but we're talking about roughly 100 miles worth of path, most of which remained untouched. And they ignored that. They didn't pay any attention to that. All they paid attention to was the damage. And then it never occurred to them to ask about that.
I was meeting some friends a couple weeks ago for a painting party. And it was at this place that, supplies all the paints and whatever. And it's a really fun event. And so I was heading out. And as I was driving, I'm like, oh, wow, it looks like it's going to start to rain. Okay, well, it's not just a little bit of rain. Oh, it's really major thunder showers. Oh, it's coming down really heavy. Oh, my gosh, there's like flooding all over the place. Texas is known for flash floods.
Right.
Boom, sudden rain. It comes down so fast and furious, the sewer system can't absorb it quickly enough.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I'm driving through some major flood areas, but it wasn't so severe. And it was the kind of thing, you just drive carefully. I've been through many of these and, so I was doing just fine. Well, the thing that threw me off a little bit is my cell phone goes off and I'm getting a text message and I see that it's from my friends that I'm about to meet there.
Mm.
And it caused me to wonder, because I'm maybe about 10 minutes away. I wonder if that area, maybe the electricity went out and so now the painting party's canceled or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I did my best to safely, respond to, answering the phone. And they were telling me how they were going through their part of town heading toward the painting party. And the lights were out, traffic lights were flashing, trees, were like covering up the road. And I mean, oh my God, they painted, painting party.
Yeah, right.
They painted this really huge picture of all sorts of damage and whatnot, and they were calling just to let me know, to be careful. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay, thanks. I said, but I'll be more careful if I get off the phone. So I'll see you soon.
Okay.
So I get off the phone and I'm driving. Well, finally I get to a red light. So I go on my phone to see the intersection they were talking about. And I realized I would never get to that intersection. They live in a completely opposite side of town, but they had to come through that intersection to get there, but I didn't.
I see. Okay.
And what was fascinating to me, and I make no judgment on anybody, but they don't live a life of law of attraction like I do.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought, isn't that interesting that I went through, in a way, the same storm they did, but they encountered things that were much more dire than I was. I just dealt with rain and flash flooding, which may sound like a big deal, but when you live in Texas, it's not, because you know what to do with it. But I just thought it was interesting how same storm, we both got stuck in it, if you will, but their circumstances were very different than mine.
Mm.
And I thought, see, that's another something, everything always works out for me.
Yeah.
I'm always being protected. And of course, I was in communication with my inner being while I was driving. And I was asking questions like, should I get off the road? Should I exit the highway? Should I go honker down and sit in the parking lot? And I kept getting, no, just continue to drive cautiously. I'm like, okay, it's all good. And
Very
I
good.
got there actually right on time. I met them at the same time, and it was painting party went on, and it's like, wow. It's just I live this life that feels magical. And to other people, they either think I'm crazy, or they think I'm bragging, or they don't know what to do with me, which is probably most of the time.
Right.
But, I've spent a lifetime getting to where I am today. And I'm not going to say, so damn it, I deserve to have this magical life. But I'm saying, no, I focused my way here. I worked through my stuff. I practiced feeling good. Because honestly, I practiced feeling bad way, way longer than necessary.
You and me both.
And when I found out I didn't have to feel bad and there was a choice, I chose the other option.
Yeah.
I chose the other white meat.
The other meat, right. Exactly. It's funny, too, because I've only been practicing law of attraction now for, let's see, how long has it been? I guess this is my 11th year. And before that, I was just like everybody else. I felt like I was, I was the victim of whatever the fates had in mind and all that kind of thing. Even if I didn't believe in fate, I felt like I had no control, no power over any of it. Even though I had previously demonstrated control, I just, hadn't made the association in my mind. Well, just like most people, I was very skeptical about anything mysticism related, anything spiritual related. I was very, very skeptical of it. And when I was talking with my sister today, when my sister called to report that she and my mom had evacuated to West Virginia, I was going over with her what I was planning to do with Tropical Vacation Florence, and she liked that. And it was a reminder to her to stay on the positive side. Now, but the second thing is my sister was into this stuff long before I was, and had been trying to educate me about it for years, and I was naysaying all of it for a long, long time. And so I said to her, can you imagine, we just had a conversation about what to focus on, and after the conversation I said, can you imagine me talking like this 20 years ago? And her reaction was, I would have been flabbergasted.
So you're saying you've changed a bit? Well,
I have changed my tune, yes. And I say that not to blow my own horn. I say it to remind everybody, anyone can change their tune. It's not like this is an unusual thing. It's happening more and more. More and more people are becoming attuned to this stuff. They're learning about it. They're learning how it all works. They're learning how to apply it in their lives.
It's available to all of us.
It is, yeah.
Not everybody is going to choose to dive in the pool with us.
Not everybody's even ready to.
And yeah, I mean, I didn't dive in for a long time. I got introduced to the law of attraction in 2002 and kind of went, it's nice, but whatever. And it wasn't until 2007 when I was at a point I was purposely seeking something that would help me make sense of my life and help me to feel better. That when I heard the message of Abraham Hicks, actually I had heard it in 2002. I went looking for them in 2007. Found them online. Found I could enroll in their subscription program where I would be purchasing their unedited workshop CDs. And I just went, okay. And I bought them and I started listening, and it changed my life. So in 2007, I was hungry. I was ready for some major changes.
It makes a difference.
And I'm a true believer that until a person is hungry, they don't hear. The answer can be right in front of them for something that they're seeking. But if they're not seeking with a level of hunger, it's not going to make any difference. It's going to go right over their head.
Oh, that's me. That's exactly what I did. I mean, when my sister was trying to tell me all this stuff all those years ago, I wasn't ready to hear it. In fact, I remember the very first time I got anything like this, besides directly from my sister's lips, my sister took me to one of these spiritual churches that she attended in Washington, D.C., and it was where you have a whole bunch of psychics who are just reading people in the audience and so forth. And I was kind of like bemused by the whole thing and so forth. And somebody gave me a reading, something about, I can't remember exactly what they said, but they were giving me some sort of reading that suggested I should make a change. And I just kind of sat there saying, yeah, okay, that's interesting. I didn't buy into it at all. And I didn't even know what to do with the information if I did buy into it. I wasn't ready. I simply wasn't ready to accept any of it.
When I was in business many years ago, I had a costume manufacturing company, and my partner named Steve, he and I had been friends for a long time, and we had stayed in touch since we had met at a costume company years before, and always said one day we wanted to start our own company, and so we did. And the whole time he knew me, even though I didn't know law of attraction, I was talking about personal development because that had always been my passion. And then the more programs and courses and seminars that I took, the more I would share information. And he pretty much rolled his eyes all the time. And then he'd have a problem, and then I was the first person he came to. And I could help him a little bit.
Yeah.
I at least helped him to relieve the immediate pain.
Sure.
It's like he was willing to buy into whatever I was selling.
Yeah.
If it helped him in the moment.
Right.
But as soon as he felt better, he went back to rolling his eyes at whatever I said.
Of course, yeah.
It's amazing to me that we even maintained a friendship because
well,
all
that is
I
something.
cared about talking about was personal development, and he was rolling his eyes. So anyway, and mind you, there was a part of my relationship with him that I was saying to Spirit or whoever was guiding my life at the time, I just said, can he not be my friend anymore? Because it's like a black cloud follows him wherever he goes. He had every drama and trauma known to humanity occur to him.
Wow.
I mean, from car accidents to diseases to conditions to family trauma. I mean, there was just always something. And frankly, it just kind of went against the grain of my feeling good. But so now scroll forward many years. We're no longer in business together. I've left the company. We're not even speaking anymore. And then out of the blue, he calls me and we patch things up and we start being friendly once again. And he asked me if I'll come work for him. And so I did. And now our friendship takes on a very different tone. And reason being, in the 2 years we hadn't spoken, he had a heart attack.
Oh, wow.
And obviously he lived.
Yes. Otherwise he wouldn't have called you.
It changed his thinking. All of a sudden, he knew that if he was going to live, he had to change how he lived.
Yeah.
He had to change the stress that was in his life.
Sometimes we require a 2x4 to the side of the head, or in this case, to the chest.
A heart attack. Well, what was interesting is when he began to make some new changes, he became open to thoughts that he'd never been open to before. And for him, spiritual gifts began to show up in his life, and he didn't know what to do with them. He started having insight into things that didn't make sense to him.
Well, that's disorienting. I mean, that's very disorienting if you've not had it before. And there have been times when I've experienced stuff like that, and I didn't know what to do with it. And that's an uncomfortable thing if you don't know what to do with it.
So who does he call?
Of course.
Wendy. This weird thing's going on. Do you have any idea what this means? And I'm like, oh, yeah, you've tapped into your intuition, and you're actually getting intuitive guidance about blah, blah, blah. And he'd go, really? How do you know that? So I'd explain. And over time, he started embracing this as a spiritual gift instead of something weird that freaked him out and something that he needed to pray away because he thought, oh, it's bad, it's bad. And because he loved doing Renaissance fairs, because as a costume designer, he did them.
Oh, yeah, that'd be perfect. Yeah.
But now he started to attend, instead of doing it for costuming, he went as a medium.
Oh, really?
Yeah, psychic medium. And he started doing psychic readings. And it was hysterical because I'd know, the fair was going to happen on Saturday or Sunday. And almost every Saturday and Sunday night, I'd get a call from him telling him about the readings he did that day and the different things that came through to him. And he goes, here's what I told him, but is this even right? And he goes, because now people are actually wanting more than just me reading them. They want advice. They want to know how to fix their life. And I just thought it was so funny because that which he resisted from me, it showed up in a new way, and all of a sudden he needed that information.
Well, he embraced it, and he may not have embraced it comfortably, but he embraced it.
He did. He did embrace it, and it was a really fun thing. Because, and I'll just say this because it's so unusual. I don't know another psychic that has ever experienced their psychic gift coming through the way he had it. Because his expertise in costuming was costume history, when he would do a psychic reading for somebody who had passed on, how he interpreted the energy of that person would be through their apparel, such as he would see somebody and he'd say, I see a stovepipe hat.
Ah, yes.
I see a cane with like an eagle on the top, like a brass eagle. And I can't even name all the things he did, but he would name historical like props or artifacts. And, the person would say, yes, that's Uncle so-and-so, and we still have that cane, or we still have that thing on the mantle. And, that's how he was able to help identify who was coming through, because they would show up to him in certain kinds of apparel and attire from a historical time period.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody who's received psychic readings that way.
Yeah, that's pretty unusual. Yeah, cool. Yeah. I mean,
and even when he said, why is it happening? I said, because that's what you focus on. You're so focused on costume history. It totally makes sense that that's how they would show up for you.
Sure, it's going to be the most meaningful.
Yeah. And of course, if you go to a Renaissance fair, isn't that all the more cool and fitting?
Right, yeah. It's also safe, too. That's the thing that occurs to me, because most people attending a Renaissance fair don't expect that the guy who's dressed as the psychic medium actually is really claiming to be a psychic medium. He's just playing a role there. He's part of the theater of the thing. And if it happens to turn out that he says something that's true, well, that makes it just even better. It's a safe way to do it, right?
Yeah. So now, I don't know, somehow this connects to me that, like my friend Steve was receiving information that he didn't know what to do with, and it kind of freaked him out at first. I want to tell you, my conversation with Rhonda today just kind of went in a direction I totally didn't expect. I was talking about just certain issues in my life. I was talking about weight loss and body image and whatever. And just saying I was kind of putting a re-emphasized focus, asking, my inner being to provide some more answers, etc. And so she and I were chatting about it. And she'd ask me questions, and I would have memories from my certain past life, not past lives, but certain experiences that happened in my past, show up. Mm-hmm. And she kept asking, and this is a common question she asked, which is, does this belong to you? Now,
that's an interesting question.
I've known her for 4 years, and that's a question both she and my friend Keisha ask all the time.
Huh.
And that's a question that comes out of the body of work called Access Consciousness.
Oh, okay.
And so I didn't know what to do with it. And over and over and over, I'd ask both Keisha and Rhonda to please try to explain to me what they're really asking me. And I never felt satisfied in their response. But the closest I came to is something that I understood from NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, which is like, where did this belief, thought, or incident originate?
Yeah, I could see that.
So oftentimes I could say, oh, this originated with my mother. This was an issue she had. So obviously I picked up the energy behind that issue, and that's why it then became an issue for me. And so that's how I'd been translating it for years. So when Rhonda would say, who does this belong to? I'd say, oh, wow, that was my Aunt Grace, or, oh, that's my dad's, or because I would find a common, like whatever my negative belief was, I go, oh, my dad had that too. And so that's how I'd answer that question. Well, as we were going through some stuff today, I had a series of images, like memories, come to me. And let's see. I've morphed these already, so it's almost hard to go back and find the origin.
No, I understand. I do the same thing.
Okay, so here's one I can remember. When I was in junior high and I was graduating, I had made my dress, by the way, and I was so proud of this dress. So I remember walking down the aisle to receive my, graduation thing. Anyway, that's really not a part of it, but it was a really good day for me.
Mm-hmm.
I felt really proud of graduating. And when it was all over, my mother says to me, because my whole family was there, included extended family, and my mother says to me, your Aunt Grace said you should have been wearing a girdle.
Oh, dear.
Now, I'm 12 years old.
Oh, jeez.
I'm wearing a full-length gown. I felt beautiful in this gown that I had actually sewn myself. And that comment hit me so painfully
Yeah.
that, and I won't go into all the details, but because of that, I was angry. I resisted it. And like to this day, I will not wear Spanx because Spanx to me are just the current version of a girdle.
Oh, okay.
But it was all about sucking it all in, right? And so anyway, that was just a conversation Rhonda and I were having. And all of a sudden I went, oh, that was about her. Like I just intuited that was about her. That wasn't about me.
Right.
I was a beautiful 12-year-old walking down the aisle to go get my diploma. That was my Aunt Grace's projection.
Right.
Like, I don't know what it's not like she and I had this conversation when I was a kid, but I just had this intuitive knowing that was her negative body image that she felt about herself, which now projected it out onto me. And so anything she saw that reminded her of her dissatisfaction with her body is what she was projecting onto me.
Yeah, makes sense.
And so she made the comment to her mother. And so Rhonda said, so that doesn't belong to you. That's hers.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, and I'll do my best to explain this, I understood when Rhonda and Keisha would say, does this belong to you, what that really meant.
Yeah, it makes it a lot clearer now when you tell the story that way.
Because it really is about, like, and I had like a whole litany of people that I'm like, my dad did this to me, my principal did this to me, my aunt did this to me, and all these different people that said things that negatively impacted my body image. And I'm not blaming them. I'm just saying the incidences that occurred with them, the way I responded was so negative that it caused me to take on shame and humiliation and blah, blah, blah.
Exactly.
And now I was looking at these incidences and I was able to recognize where each person had their own insecurity, we'll say, or their own negative judgment upon their own body, but then they projected it outside of themselves. And here's the piece that was new to me. Because I was so sensitive, I picked up on the feeling that they experienced, and I misidentified it as I was feeling that way about me.
Yeah.
Versus they were feeling that way about them and projected it on me. And so what I understood for the first time was that I was interpreting their feelings through my apparatus. But it wasn't about me. It was about them.
Yeah, good one. Really, very, very good.
And the misidentification, because no one ever, who trains people in how to read energy and understand energy, right?
Not many people.
So I just took it on to think, because it felt really bad when my mom said, your aunt said you should have worn a girdle. I was mortified. I was embarrassed. I was shamed. I felt like, what's wrong with me? Because when I was standing in that dress, I felt beautiful. And it made me second guess, well, maybe I'm not beautiful. Maybe I'm fat. Maybe I'm this. Maybe I'm all these ugly things. Because why else would someone say I should wear a girdle?
Right.
Unless how I appeared was unacceptable to them. And it completely was against my own brain, which said I looked beautiful. So I felt beautiful, but my great aunt didn't. And because of my psychic, if you will, or energetic sensitivity, I was able to pick up on her feeling. And because I didn't know any different, I took it on as my own.
Yeah.
And I have made it my own for all of these decades until today.
Something we all do, but not necessarily realize that we do it.
Yeah. And it's fascinating because I was doing a mini session with somebody just last week, and I literally said almost the exact same words to them about a situation that happened to them when they were a child, not even realizing it was a foreshadowing of what the message that I needed to receive. Because I remember saying about him, because of an incident that happened when he was young, I said, you were very sensitive. And at the time, it was labeled as like you're hypersensitive, like that's something bad. But I said, I believe it was a beautiful sensitivity to energy that later in your life you would develop, and you would come to appreciate how highly sensitive you are to be able to picking up messages and intuition. And he's like, that is who I am today. And I said, so you got the gift from that thing that started way back when. Now it's okay for you to release that situation. And he did. And now he feels very different about it. Little did I know, that was me. That was a story for me as well.
Well, apparently you were setting your own vibration at that point. I mean, you were basically enhancing it so that it came later.
And so I had been very energetically sensitive since I was a very small child. But I just thought I was picking up on all of these feelings and thought they were mine.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to tell you, knowing these things didn't really belong to me really sets me free on a level that you can't know unless it's you.
Nice.
But I'm like, wow, there's nothing wrong with me. And now I've even was able to go back to a story with my dad, where he would walk up to me and he would grab, what people call your love handles. And who knows, I think this is a made up word, but he called them gluten plats. And our whole family knows about our gluten plats, and that's what we call love handles. And he would grab my gluten plats and he'd just giggle. And I would be, again, just mortified, shamed, humiliated, because he's holding onto my fat and jiggling it. So today, as I was thinking about that, now with this new perception that I'm picking up on energy, I said, what was that really about?
Good question.
Oh my gosh, I love what came through to me.
What?
My dad wanted to make a loving connection. Oh. How he learned how to do it was through critical jesting, through inappropriate things.
Mm-hmm.
So he grabs a hold of my love handles and jiggles them, makes up a silly word. But I could even go back and feel my dad, and I'm like, he meant that to be love.
Wow.
That was how he did love. It might have seemed creepy to other people, but
well, it was. I mean, perfectly honest, but nevertheless, that he was trying to break through. That was the best he could do.
Yeah. And so today, as I was in the shower, as I was thinking about that, and I went, that was my dad loving me. And I've spent all these years thinking he'd been so critical of me, and he was making fun of my love handle.
Mm-hmm.
No, he wasn't. It just happened to be something that he loved to make up silly words, and it was a way for him to do it. And because I was the firstborn and he started doing that with me, he continued to do that with all the kids. So there's 4 of us in our family. And if you say the word Glotenbloots, we all know what that means. And we all laugh because the energy behind it was my dad just wanting to be playful.
Mm.
But I was very energetically sensitive. And so I was picking up this feeling, but simultaneously not knowing how to interpret it. And, just like when my previous partner, started receiving these psychic things, he thought something freaky was happening and was trying to pray it away. Well, in a way, that's what I did. Instead of trying to pray away all these horrible feelings, I just absorbed them and judged myself and made myself ugly.
Which is often very much the same thing when you think about it.
Yeah, you're
really?
Right.
I mean, ultimately, when it comes down to it.
So today was an incredible day of freedom for me.
Yeah.
Because I was able to release a ton of judgment, of self-judgment that never belonged to me. In some ways was just misidentified. In some ways, people were just trying to love me, and they did it through a way that I misinterpreted. Like, wow.
Good for you.
This is so cool. But it's all about reframing. You know, when I was talking with Rhonda, we were talking about, you know, how do we help our clients make changes? And we were just kind of boiling it down to the basic elementals. And I said, we identify the thinking that's not working. And then how we release it, because we release the resistant thoughts, and then we replace it with allowing thoughts, thoughts that are loving, thoughts that are rejuvenating, thoughts that feel good. And that's what I did. I replaced some thoughts that felt horrible to me for years with thoughts that feel really sweet. It's like, wow. So I know that because of that replacement of the thinking, what I'm now going to attract is going to be very different. Very different.
That's a great day to have all that happen in one day. I mean, not obviously the past happened in the past, but to have all those transitions happen today, that's fabulous.
Yeah. And so now let's loop this around to Hurricane Florence.
Well, you mean tropical vacation Florence?
Exactly. We can reframe it, change its meaning, and how you experience it will be in a delightful way. And those that choose to reframe it and find a better way to view it will be out of harm's way, and they will have a positive experience.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And that's available to all of us. We just don't all know it or aren't ready for it. But those that are, those that have ears to hear it, let them hear that message.
Or perhaps they just aren't listening to LOA Today.
There you go.
I mean,
and I'll bet you have some important things now to say.
Well, that's true. You're right. That's the perfect segue, isn't it? Because we do want to get more and more people finding out about LOA Today so that more and more people can get these messages. So here it is. If you're a subscriber, please take a moment to just put something on your favorite social media channel about loatoday.net so that other people will find out about it. And remember that it isn't just the social media algorithm that shares it with friends or whatever. Law of attraction gets it into the hands of people you don't even know and produces amazing results. And we're seeing it. Today, Wendy, I mean, just to give you a measurement, like two to 3 months ago, on average, we would average per day approximately 200 to 250 downloads of various episodes that we've recorded from the podcast. Today, I woke up and the day was only 6-7 hours old, and already over 500 downloads had occurred. When I last checked, we were closing in on 700. And it's all happening because people are putting out there, I'm listening to loatoday.net.
Wow, that is amazing. Thank you to our listeners for doing that.
Absolutely. And by the way, if you're not yet a subscriber, hey, what are you waiting for? You know, if you're on an iPhone, just go to your podcast software. It's that purple icon app that's on your iPhone, and open it up and do a search for LOA Today, and you'll get a subscribe button where you can subscribe right to the podcast. If you're an Android user, you don't actually normally have podcast software built in by default, but you can just go to the Play Store and do a search for some podcast software. There's a lot of it out there. I like the free ones. Grab one, install it, and do a search within that software for LOA Today, and you'll pop us right up and subscribe from there. And that way you get all of our episodes coming right to your smartphone every single day. So you'll never miss your daily dose of happy, and that's the best thing. Right? I mean, isn't that so good?
Right.
So, yeah.
And I like to listen to LOA Today episodes while I'm at my computer, at my PC.
Mm-hmm.
And I always know when they come through because I have a sound. Like once you publish it, it goes bing. I'm like, oh, cool. The latest one has come through, and boom, it's available to me, and I'm ready to listen.
It's so easy. It's amazing how quickly. Technology is wonderful in this way. So yeah, you want to take advantage. And Wendy, you're still building the practice. We didn't really talk about that today, but for someone who wants a little private consult, how do they reach you?
They can reach me through wendydillard.com.
And there it is. Very simple. Wendy, it's been a pleasure. I look forward to talking to you on Thursday.
All righty.
And we hope that you'll join us next time as well here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye-bye for now.